If you are a caretaker in your professional or personal life and have ever hit burnout from putting everyone's needs above your own, I've got you. This episode is chock full of free, easy resources to get your life back. As a busy mom of three running multiple businesses, a handful of years ago, my physical, mental, and emotional health hit rock bottom. And like most women, I hid it from the world, and so hardly anyone knew how badly I was suffering. In this process, I realized I needed to come up with ways to get myself back to me and also to ensure that this never happened again. Recently, I was able to share these tips and tools with a group of practitioners, doctors, and caretakers at an anti-aging conference in Las Vegas. And this episode is that talk, and I'm so excited to share it with you. These are 5 simple tools to change your life. They're free, they're quick, and you can do them with anything in your busy life, and you can start today. I'm so excited for you to hear them. Enjoy. I'm actually gonna come to you from a place of a practitioner and also a patient. And like Shannon said, I'm getting more used to sharing my voice on stage, and this is actually a really vulnerable share, so I might get emotional, so please bear with me. But it's just so important that you guys know how powerful this tool is, both as practitioners for your patients, but especially as practitioners for ourselves, because if we burn out and we fry, we can't help anybody anyway. My name is Dr. Melissa Saunders. I'm the host of Be Inspired Mama. It's a podcast and a platform and a community for women that are looking to create deeper connections with each other and with themselves. I'm also, along with my husband, Dr. Jason Saunders, who will be speaking after lunch, the co-founder of Core Therapy's Wellness Center. It's a multidisciplinary center in the heart of New Jersey. And together we also co-founded HBOT USA, which is an international company dedicated towards up-leveling the field of hyperbarics by certifying practitioners. I'm also honored to be a board member of the International Hyperbarics Association, and my favorite job is being a mom to our 3 kids. Our objectives here together today are to understand the importance of self-care for caretakers, to understand hyperbarics' role in inflammation, and to understand hyperbarics' role in conditions like chronic disease and infections. I know Mindy asked, but I just want to get another show of hands. How many of you are practitioners in the room? Almost everybody. And then keep your hand up if you're using hyperbarics already. Okay, so about half of you. Raise your hand if you now are starting to realize the power of hyperbarics through these lectures. Awesome. I definitely encourage you guys to ask questions on breaks. Dr. Anju Usman and Dr. New, the first 2 speakers of today, are really some of the pioneers in the field. My husband and I have been in this field for about 15 years, and they, along with a handful of other doctors, really taught us everything that we know. You're sitting with some of the best in this field. So today, I'm going to share with you 5 tools and hacks that took me years of suffering to figure out. I don't want any of you out there to suffer the way that I have, but I'm willing to guess that a lot of you, especially as practitioners and caretakers, are. Today, we have the chance to change your story, to leave here with new questions to ask yourself, new health priorities, and a new understanding of what you need in order to feel your best. And it's not going to be what you think. First, I want to share a story with you all, a story of where it all started for me. These are our kids. They're now 13, 11, and 7. The story of where my life forever changed started at our son's kindergarten graduation. This day became a pivotal moment in my life where there's always been a before and after this moment. So I was sitting here listening to the kindergarten class graduation, and they were singing the Bruno Mars song, "You Can Count on Me Like 1, 2, 3." The words hit me when they said, "If you ever find yourself lost in the dark and you can't see, I'll be the light to guide you." So you can imagine these sweet little innocent voices singing these words. I started to cry, and a mom leaned over to me when she saw me crying. She said, "I so get it. I can't believe our babies are graduating. They've grown up so quickly." But that's not why I was crying. As I nursed our baby girl on my lap, I had my husband in one chair next to me and our 4-year-old son on the other. I looked up at the stage and I couldn't remember a single child's name. I was the room parent, and most of these kids spent a lot of time at our house. If they weren't in our home and I wasn't in the classroom, I was often getting together with the other moms while our kids played together. The biggest kicker and scariest moment was when I looked up at my son and could hardly remember his name. In this moment, I realized something was horribly wrong. So although maybe your story is a little bit different, have any of you ever had one of these pivotal moments in your life where you realized something had to change? I think the reason for all of us that we have that moment is different, but so many of us, if we haven't already, at some point in our lives, we'll get to a place where we know we have to do things differently, and that was mine. I realized in that moment that I had lost a part of me. As a mom of 3 and a busy career woman juggling our practice, and I had to go on to rediscover and find what was missing. I was facing an inner battle that nobody could see. And so because I looked like my normal self on the outside, nobody knew how much struggle I had on the inside. And like typical women, I not only didn't ask for help, but I continued to help everybody else instead of asking for that help and support that I so desperately needed. So I want to ask, especially the women in the audience, have you ever been in that place where you so badly needed help or had an inner struggle that nobody could see? Maybe it's hormones or grief or loss or stress, but you didn't know who or how to ask for help. So men, look around, especially the practitioner men. I know Mindy talked about, if you're someone who isn't already using hyperbarics in your practice and you're going to start to incorporate this as a tool, it's not just about that tool, it's your time with these patients. And I don't mean to exclude the men. I just think that we've finally gotten to a time where women are having these conversations, where we're really starting to talk about what we need. And you as the practitioner can be such a conduit for healing by starting to actually listen to these women. And ladies, my real hope is that by us starting to have these conversations, we can start to demonstrate for the men how powerful we can be in our vulnerability, and they can start to do the same. So my goal for you here today is to realize that you can 100% break free from continuing to live this way. One concept I really want everybody to walk away from here with is the reframe of the term self-care. I want everyone to stop hearing the word self-care and thinking about things like massages and bubble baths and just one more thing to add to our never-ending to-do list. Self-care, in my mind, is having the ability to tune in, to listen to what we need, deserve, and what our hearts desire, and taking action from that place, allowing us to live a life of wholeness and a life worth living. The parts of me that I felt died that day when I noticed things were terribly wrong were brought back to life through physical tools to catalyze growth and change, and emotional and mental tools that helped rebuild my soul. These are the tools I'm going to share with you all today, and you can feel free to take notes, take pictures of the slides. One really important thing I want to talk about before I start with the tools is one of my mentors, Dr. Jin Tempo, often in his talks will talk about something called the jacuzzi experience. So we can all gather in these rooms as practitioners and we can hear this incredible information. You guys have heard a ton of pivotal information that can help you as practitioners, you as people, and your patients. And there's two things in my mind that are the worst things that could happen from today. One, you sit here and you have what I like to call jacuzzi experience. It feels good, but when you get out, nothing has changed and you've done nothing with the information. So I encourage you to take pictures, take slides, take notes. I'm going to be asking you some questions and I'm going to pause and give you a minute to really think about it. The second thing is that, especially for the practitioners in the room, is if we allow ourselves to burn out, if we continue to take care of everyone else and forget to take care of ourselves, then at some point, we're no longer going to be able to help our patients. So in addition to talking about hyperbaric oxygen therapy, which you're going to hear a lot about for the rest of the day, I really want to give you guys some tools as practitioners to make sure that you're doing this for yourself so that you can continue to deliver this literally life-saving therapy to your clients. So we all know that our mental and physical health should take top priority. But how many of us, just even in the last couple days, have made choices or decisions that perhaps negatively impact our physical or mental health? When I was in the thick of how I was feeling, I couldn't respond to emails. I couldn't do simple things. I was literally losing my mind. I felt like I had dementia. How many of you in the audience have been there? Like you literally felt like you were losing your mind. Maybe you leave a room and you forget what you went in there for. I'm sure all the perimenopause, postmenopausal women have dealt with that, getting lost in the Venetian Hotel, all the things. So literally the most powerful tool that I used in my journey was the hyperbaric oxygen therapy chamber. So many things I could say about this. And like I said, I'm going to talk about a lot of other tools here. But one of the most important things I want you guys to get is that, at least for me, speaking from like a patient standpoint, if I didn't get in the chamber, I couldn't have done any of the other stuff that I did to rebuild. So in addition to all the things that I'm going to talk about the chamber, all the things you're going to continue to hear, in my mind, all the things that I've done for my health and for my patients' health, there is no tool that is so passive and so effective. So when your mind is completely shattered or when you're physically in so much pain that you can't even think through what your next steps need to be, getting someone in the chamber is literally life-saving. I don't know where I would be if my husband didn't play doctor role and husband role and get my ass in that chamber. So mental clarity is a huge thing that benefits from the hyperbaric chamber. So when I was going through what I was experiencing, I would struggle to figure out how I could get in the chamber for an hour. Like I said, I had a big, busy practice full of patients. We were running the clinic, 3 small children. So getting that hour in the chamber is something that really stressed me out and something that you might hear from your patients as a concern. But what I found is once I could crawl in there and take that time, I would get out and my productivity would go up like tenfold. So I would literally get in the chamber and halfway through, it's like Mindy said, the Benjamin Button machine. So I felt like for me, the cobwebs were being vacuumed out of my brain. Like literally the air smelled better. The lights were brighter. You can literally feel the changes. I think they build over time, but I'm telling you, if someone has that challenge of, maybe not wanting to get for an hour, how am I going to spend that much time? You will get it back tenfold. I would get out of the chamber. I could juggle the mental and emotional load of the day. There were things like multitasking. I couldn't get past one step. I still use the chamber today regularly. And I don't know those of you who go in if you notice this, but I'll notice things like someone's phone number. They can rattle it off and I'll remember all the numbers. Like it improves multitasking, helps so much with mental clarity and planning. So we're going to continue to hear talks throughout the day on the benefits of hyperbarics. Dr. New talked about how it can decrease inflammation. Dr. Anju talked about how it's such a powerful natural antibiotic. Mindy talked about how, among other things, it can help balance hormones, increase insulin sensitivity, helping to balance blood sugar. The important thing to remember is that hyperbaric oxygen therapy is not a targeted treatment. So it's not literally like you put someone in a chamber and the chamber somehow knows that you're treating migraines. As we all know, this is a natural tool and it's literally impacting every system in the body. As Dr. New touched on, the name hyperbaric means increased pressure. And if we can all go back to our high school science and remember Boyle's law, any gas under pressure is absorbed more readily. So we're literally taking oxygen, which is one of the most healing nutrients to the nervous system, and we're megadosing it. So this is why so many, like what we like to call side benefits, occur when someone goes in the chamber. When we talk about dealing with patients with chronic infection or viruses, hyperbarics can decrease the cytokines and increase the ability to fight off infection by increasing white blood cell activation. This high oxygen environment that's created also can kill the infection itself. So hyperbarics is essentially, like I said, providing the body with the most important nutrient it needs. And it essentially just helps turn the body back onto self-healing mode. So here's one of those questions, the first question I want to ask you, and I really encourage you to take a minute to either think about this or write this down. But what is the one thing that if you could sneak away from your life for 1 hour to do, that would be a complete game changer for you? What would be possible in your life if you turned this area back on? So I know so many of us, especially after travel and busy trips like this, where, like Mindy touched on, we're exposed to these toxins, maybe different food, different environment, subpar sleep. So many of us at some time in our life have wanted like a complete reset of our health. And fasting, I find, is one of the best tools for that, as Mindy just touched on and she'll talk about again on Friday from the stage. So one of the tools that I used at this point in my life was fasting. It was one of my favorite tools because it was not only free, but it actually saved money. And raise your hand if you traveled in here for this conference. So how many of you use fasting on your travel days? So like Mindy said, one of the things with fasting is when you do it more often, you can actually get to a place of not being what we like to call hangry. And yesterday when Jason and I were traveling in, I was so glad that we have access to fasting. So we were up at 4 a.m., got the house ready for my parents to watch the kids, flew to Denver, thought that we would get to eat in Denver. We flew from Miami, so we had a 4.5-hour flight, landed in Denver, barely made our next flight, had to run. So it was like an 8-hour day, no food. And thank God for fasting. Not only did we not feel hangry, we actually felt more mental clarity so that we could enjoy the second flight. So I'd like you to think about how will you incorporate a chemical clean out into your life? This is like my jam. This is my favorite stuff to talk about. I would like to start by asking a question. How many of you have a morning ritual, an intentional morning ritual? So what I mean by intentional morning ritual is you probably get up, you go to the gym, maybe you meditate, maybe you listen to music. But I bet every single one of you in here has a morning routine without even realizing it. So for most people, our mornings look similar each and every day. So it may be something like you wake up, you get the coffee, you check your email, you check your socials, you check the news, You spike your cortisol, and then you get ready for your day. Does anyone have a morning like that? Just me? So how many of you are benefiting from what you're currently doing in the morning? I wasn't. So I used to do what I called my power hour. We learned this, I think, from Tony Robbins. So pre-kids, Jason and I would get up an hour before work, and this is what the morning looked like. Okay, so I'd set the alarm for 4 a.m., make a really strong coffee, and in our house, it wasn't strong enough unless you could chew it or your armpits got sweaty. Then I would head to the 5:45 a.m. CrossFit when I was still feeling super stiff, and I'd flip some tires, come home, hop on the emails, get the kids off to school, have a full day of patients in the practice, which we were also running. So in between patients, I'm working with our staff and our 5 other doctors. Come home, do homework with kids, cook dinner, slam a few glasses of wine to relax, take the edge off, get the kids to bed, go to bed, repeat the next day. How many of you are currently living this way and wonder why you're stressed out, in fight or flight, or feel like shit? Me too. So I replaced what I used to call my power hour with what I now call my magical mornings, and it's made all the difference. And for people in this audience that are taking care of people, I highly encourage you to make this flip. Having a slow start to our days helps us get into a place of responding to the stresses in our life rather than reacting. I'm going to talk about that from like a brain wave standpoint. Okay, so this is how my mornings currently look. Those of you that have children, I encourage you to invite them in as well. So we have these really yummy mornings. The lights are all really dim or red. Our youngest lays on our PMF mat. They actually all fight about it. They're reading. It's super chill. So I call our morning area our morning lounge. And my main goal in this time, and literally it could be like a half hour before the day starts. Like our day starts 6:30, 7 a.m. It's pretty busy, I'm sure, like all of you. My main goal is just to get everyone into a state of ease and calm. So we're basically slowing down that transition from that dreamlike state that we wake up with into our day. So again, it doesn't have to take long. And here's some great ways to start your day with a magical morning. So the lighting I mentioned is really key. So when we wake up, we're in like a dreamlike state, theta or delta brain waves. And these are actually our peak brain waves for problem solving. So the longer that we can max these out, the more productive we're going to be throughout the rest of the day. As soon as we're exposed to white light from our phones, from our computers, from the lighting in our house, we turn those off. We instantly go into our beta brain waves, which are more like the high-powered cortisol driven. So I have some fancy lights in our home that are a bit of an investment, but I've also just gotten on Amazon like $10 red light bulbs. Those are the only lights that we have in the morning. Everyone in our family jokes that I'm constantly walking around shutting off the lights, especially at night. I do the same thing at night and the evening once the sun goes down. And I yell at them because I need to make melatonin. Another thing I suggest people can do in the morning rather than getting right on their emails or social media is to read something that grounds or inspires you. So I've actually started a book club for women where we're doing just that. I think we've, in the busyness of our lives and our careers, we've completely lost ourselves. And an empowering book that we can just like start our day with can help get us back to that place before stepping into everything else. How many people in here meditate? So I always wanted to meditate. I was extremely intimidated by it. I don't know if other people in the room are as well. I thought that the goal of meditation was to literally sit there and think of nothing. And that's like nearly impossible for me. I have a million thoughts throughout the day. I'm sure a lot of you do as well. So what I have found is that, calling it meditation for me, the goal is simply to sit and I think about my thoughts, kind of like a muscle. Like my goal is to stay centered here. And these little thoughts are going to come up and pull me out, right? Like, oh, I got to get to that email. I got to get the kids' thing for school. I got to make sure I talk to this person today. And I'm literally just like pulling back to here. That is successful meditation. Like doing this and flexing that muscle, especially first thing in the morning, reminds us how to access that later in the day when we're chaotic and all over the place. We can get back to our center and get back to ourselves. My husband, who has started working on this himself, I'm so proud, does better with the mantra, don't think of anything. So he sits there and he's like, don't think, don't think, don't think. Whatever is your meditation is good meditation. Other things you can do in the morning for a magical morning are journal, listen to music, draw, paint. Again, this can literally be like 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 2 minutes. It's just starting your day on a different foot and feeding yourself first so you don't lose yourself throughout the day. If you're feeling completely maxed out and this is something that you want to try, but you're just like not feeling any of it, I actually did this morning. Sometimes I'll literally go on my phone. I'll keep the night light on the iPhone, whatever it's called, and I'll look up funny news bloopers. And I'll just start my day by like crying, laughing, like jumping, laughing. And you think about how productive you will be going into your day with that energy. Think about going into a team meeting with that kind of energy. Like, this isn't wasted time. This is literally one of the most productive things that we could do. If you live with others and you're going to be starting to incorporate a magical morning, I encourage you to just have a conversation with them so that they know that you're not ignoring them. You're just taking some time to fill your own cup. Also, headphones are a really great physical barrier if you have children or a spouse or someone else that you want them to know that you're just going to be kind of centered for a few minutes in the morning. Also, reframing things like this from not being selfish to understanding that you're actually role modeling for your loved ones. Because what can happen is when we start to take these steps to fill our cup first, to fill ourselves first, is the people around us can be confused and maybe feel disconnected. But what you can do by showing them how important this is to you, and later by them experiencing how different you'll be at the end of your day by doing this, you're role modeling for them to start to do the same. This morning is often the only time that we have to do nothing, literally nothing. It's so sacred. Like I said, we don't have to feel like this time is selfish. So this was one of the biggest game changers that I made in my life after I got to a place where I could think through what I needed to change. Slowly over time, I realized I needed to tune in and listen to what my body needed, wanted, and craved. This one, I want you guys to write down. This is really important. The trauma of the CEO becomes the ceiling of your company. The trauma of the CEO becomes the ceiling of your company. Whether you run a company or a household, your trauma, your stress, your limitations are going to create the cap for what your company or your family can achieve. You will see the same pattern play out again and again and again until you make the choice to make the changes. We have to prioritize our health so we can level up before helping others. Think of all the people that you could be hurting in your life by not taking care of yourself. What happens to the people around you when you get sick, especially for the moms in the room? What happens if you get burnout? Can you help anyone? Can we help our patients in this state? And it can actually get to a point where we become a burden. What if you could create a life you enjoy instead of one you have to escape from? What would you add in and what would you remove? Again, so you don't just have the jacuzzi experience, like really take time. Think about this. This is so powerful. Boundaries. How many of us in the room actually know our capacity? And how many of us have ever hit it? How many of you at the end of the day feel completely burnout? Often, like every day? Yeah. How does that feel for you? How does that feel for the loved ones that you walk into the door to? If you have children, how are you showing up for them in this state? If you take nothing else away from this talk other than the power of hyperbarics and this next slide, I feel like I'll have done my job. So I'd like to ask you a question. Who in your life is benefiting from your lack of boundaries? Are you? And what will your life look like 6 months or a year from now if you continue to go on this way? At any given moment, we have so many obligations, opportunities, and commitments that we can barely take a moment to ourselves. I know we all get that. This tool is another free and simple one, but it's not always easy. This is a muscle like meditation that we strengthen often, and it's our ability to say no. And for anyone who's had a hard time saying no, I encourage you to turn it into an acronym. Saying no allows us to nourish ourselves. Saying no to opening up emails in the morning so that we can connect with our loved ones. Saying no to a social engagement on Friday night when all we really want to do at the end of the week is cozy up on the couch. With every opportunity and decision that we can make, we need to ask ourselves these 6 questions. These are questions that a mentor of mine passed on to me. I definitely encourage you to take a picture of this slide or write them down. These are so powerful. So with every decision we make, especially the big ones, think about how will this make me feel emotionally, intellectually, physically, and spiritually? Is there anything else I'd rather say yes to? Is there anything else I'd rather do with my time? We need to stop thinking that sticking up for ourselves is selfish. We need to stop getting the place of being completely broken before we ask for help and before we say no. The 2 most important tools we can incorporate are asking for help and saying no. Ever notice that when you just say no and people aren't used to it, you get a lot of pushback? But if you get to the point where you're completely broken, everyone all of a sudden shows up for you. I want to change that. And we change that by role modeling for others and saying no before we get to that place. My goal with everything I do on my platform, my podcast, the book club for women, is to help us all, men included, get more familiar with ourselves, to sit with ourselves, to listen to ourselves, to stick up for ourselves, so that we can all continue to serve our family, our loved ones, our patients, our clients on a high level. This quote is from one of my favorite books. This is actually the book that we're reading together in book club. The more you sit in the self, the more you'll begin to feel an energy that you've never experienced before. It comes up from behind rather than in front, where you experience your mind and emotions. Has anyone read Untethered Soul? It's time that we reframe self-care from thinking it's just another item on our to-do list that we can't get to. This is one of the most powerful tools in our toolbox. It's free and we have access to it at all times, even during the busiest of days, simply by taking a pause, tuning in, and listening. This is what I encourage you to practice every morning. This is when we can flex that muscle so that we can help it grow. We help this become a familiar practice so that we can access it during the chaos of the rest of our days. This can become an anchor into ourselves when life feels hectic. I think for a lot of us, we tend to, when we get stressed out, anchor on everything outside of us. How's that person feeling? Did I upset them? What's going on with my kids? What's going on with the traffic? Oh, I'm so mad at that coworker. When we can start to anchor in ourselves, we actually ground ourselves in something that we have control over. I know we all have heard that saying, put on your oxygen mask before assisting others. And it's so cliche, but especially in a room full of practitioners, this is so important. I know so many of us get into this field because of our massive desire to help people, to perhaps change the world one person at a time. So I encourage you all to leverage your self-care by understanding how important this is in our ability to help others and what can happen if we don't. I'm going to give you a visual as an example. Which one of these women would you ask for help? Who would ask the one on the left? The one on the right. So which one of these women do you think takes better care of herself? The one on the left? The one on the right? Which one of these women do you think drank one of my coffees that I used to make that made her armpits sweaty and then went to CrossFit and flipped tires and then checked emails and then went to work? Can we help others if we can't help ourselves? Like I said at the beginning, self-care is not bubble baths and massages. It's not slapping a Namaste bumper sticker on our car and then getting road rage. It's filling our cup first so that we can handle the challenges of our life more seamlessly. It's taking care of ourselves so we can take care of our patients, our families, our loved ones. I want to leave you guys with a short story. I was once in a yoga class in a really busy gym, and the teacher was asking us to sit and center before the class. And we could all hear like these guys, it was at a New York sports club, like these guys throwing down their weights and grunting. And the teacher was really keyed in and she sensed this. And she stopped the class and she said, she was like, listen, anyone can do yoga on a mountaintop overlooking a cliff. Anyone can feel calm and peaceful when we're at the beach. But can we stay calm in the midst of our busy lives? I want to leave you with this question. Can you do something each and every day, even if it's a few minutes, to center yourself so you can stay calm amidst the chaos that could be your life? Can you see these outer noises, chatter, and distractions as a reminder to yourself to spend a few minutes each day flexing your muscle so you can handle it? Because when we can do that, when we can fill our own cup first with self-care, we can each truly play a part in helping others and changing the world. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed hearing that lecture and got a lot of takeaways from those 5 tips and tools. If you enjoyed this episode, go ahead and put a like under it. I would love to hear in the comments which tool you're going to implement this week in your life. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any of my upcoming episodes. I'm going to continue to share a ton of these free resources with you guys, and I don't want you to miss out. So go ahead and hit that subscribe button. I know while you were listening to this episode, there was someone in your life that you thought of that you know can benefit from this information. So go ahead and send it her way, and you guys can implement these tools together. Looking forward to hearing how you're doing, and see you next time.